The things that are wrapped up in the church machine, what happens is those things take you to a place when you come to those habits and doing those things like paying your tithes and doing all the things that are in your reasonable service. Those things become tradition. And then tradition eventually becomes your religion over time as it passed down through generations. And then religion only takes you to a place where a relationship with the higher power can get you out of. So until you've developed a true relationship with Christ, a lot of those things go by the wayside as just, well, that's just the way mom did it, or just that's the way grandmama did it. And there's a lot of things that can be lost in the shuffle when it comes to living your life according to the way that the Word tells us to live it.
Welcome to Just Men, a life-changing program that resonates hope as well as encouragement. The program that gives you information and inspiration for the glory of God. I'm your host, Jeff Tate, and thank you for joining Just Men. On today's program, we have a very special guest. It's his first time being on Just Men. Please welcome Joel. Joel, welcome to Just Men.
Man, I appreciate it, my man. Thanks
Oh, man. It's a tremendous opportunity for you to kind of share God's love, His grace, His purpose, all those things, and you add value to our program. So we want to say that on the onset. And let's hit the ground running, man. Let's tell a little bit about who is Joel and how you begin this path or this pilgrimage in this heart for God.
Well, I'm pretty much like the rest of us, man. You know what our culture is. Our culture is riddled with, you know, as far as society. When you come from the hip-hop culture, it's not just what we used to call the black culture. It's no longer that anymore. It's what you can consider, you know, it's more of a hip-hop culture, because it's not just the people who look like us in it any longer, and the people who, you know, the people who survive there. I won't say live, you know, because living, we know what living represents and what the true definition of living is. So, you know, started out, you know, single parent home, and, you know, my mom, dad lived on the other side of town. He wasn't there for us, you know, it's the cliche story that you hear all the time, especially in our community. And a little bit different with me, though. My mom gave up a scholarship at Harvard University to raise my sister and I. So, you know, academic excellence and professionalism was a must in our house. You know, we weren't allowed to say, I don't know. You know, you were required to be accountable for everything that you did in our household. And you were required to have an answer. You know, my mom is probably to this day the smartest individual I know, yet and still she always forced us, hey, you know, we say, hey mom, what does this mean? Or what does that mean? She said, there's a dictionary right there, find out for yourself. You know what I'm saying? So, doing those things and, you know, going through school, you know, behavioral problems because you don't have the proper leadership, things I didn't know then, but that's how I refer to them now. And not having proper leadership led to some influences that, you know, some negative influences. It was more like I had the best of both worlds, if you want to call that. My mom was an academic scholar, and my dad is what you might consider today just your common thug. So I got the streets firsthand because mom couldn't always be there. She worked 3 jobs to take care of us, and we were still tremendously poor. And my dad, you know, whenever the little time that he did spend, you know, we'd all pile up. You know how we do. We pile up at grandmama's house, and your cousins, and everybody's there. You spend every weekend over there, and you spend the whole summer over there, and, you know, nights when mom's got to work late, things of that nature. And, you know, growing up like everybody else. And we got that culture embedded in us. And, you know, when I started coming to my own, started to get into my teenage years, I just started to rebel a lot, you know, because I didn't have the proper leadership. And, you know, I wanted my dad, but I didn't know that I wanted my dad, and, you know, going through things of that nature. And when I got my first job, I decided, hey, it's really time for me to start doing the things that I want to do, you know, getting your first car, things of that nature, spending time out, you know, hanging out with your friends, nightclubs, you know, things of that nature we do. You're 15, 16 years old, and did that, man. And I found out when I was 15 years old that I have one of the rarest blood conditions in the world. It's called paroxysmal nocturnal hemoglobinuria. But at the time, there was no diagnosis. You know, I was just going through the motions, going through the symptoms of it, and things that it would take me a year to explain. But long story short, those things took a toll on my body at a very early stage of my teen years. And you know, I'm going through this. Mom's going through a divorce. You know, stepdad, things of that nature, and just a rush for a 15, 16-year-old. And you know, I'm working, and I said, you know what? I said, look, you can make a decision. You can go to school and you can be in hundreds of thousands of dollars of debt like your mom is, or you can hit the streets right now and you can make $5,000 a week. You know what I'm saying? You can bring in 300 grand a year. You know what I'm saying? You can make the doctor money, because I wanted to study anesthesia when I went to college. So I said, I think I'm going to choose the latter. So I chose to start selling drugs when I was about 15 years old, and started moving pounds of marijuana, me and a couple of my friends, and things were just going great for me as far as from a financial end. You know, I had my first bank account when I was 6. So, you know, I knew how to manage money. You know, Mom always taught us how to budget the things that we had, because it's, you know, it's easy to budget when you don't have nothing. You know what I'm saying? So we did all of those things, man, and I got to one of my early 20s, you know, just going through life, man, losing a lot of people, losing a lot of friends, being abused, and, you know, just being mistreated, being disrespected, the things that are regular in our culture, in that hip-hop culture I spoke earlier about. And I just came to a crossroads, you know. I was raised in church, but the church was never raised in me. So what that led me to was, I always knew how to pray. I always knew who God was. I knew, you know, if you believe in heaven or hell, I believed in it from day one. And I knew with the actions the things that I was involved in, I knew that was a path to hell. I knew that the wages of sin were death, and I knew what I was doing. I just didn't have a love or a respect for God that I have today. So I would pray, you know, I would pray just like everybody else, to tell you, pray about your fears, and, you know, pray that the things that you want, you know, and be direct with God. That was something I was always taught. And then eventually my prayers began to change, because I began to see so many negative things. And then what that led me to God, I got to change this up. Lord, put me in a position where I'll be forced to come to you, because I got too many things going on in this world for me that are going to change, you know, the way that I view you and the way that I do things. Because I mean, I'm selling hundreds of thousands to millions of dollars in drugs, and I'm just going to church paying tithes, and I'm thinking, you know, I know where I'm going with these actions, but you know, you still want to have some comfort in your sin, you know, like justifying what you do. So that's what I was doing, and that prayer became to, Lord, just put me in a position where I'll be forced to come to you, because I'm not. I got too much money, I got too much women, you know, I can do anything that I want. So I'm definitely not coming to you. So I almost lost my life twice, sitting in the same spot with the same people doing the exact same thing. I was about 23, 24 years old, and just hanging out. You know, I had my gunman in one seat, I had my cousin in the other seat, you know, blunt in my mouth, talking on the cell phone, pistol in my lap, you know how we do. Just hanging out in the projects, you know. And fight breaks out. So I'm 5 to 8 years older than the majority of the young people. Like, those guys are 22, 23 years old. So that's kind of like a generation. Plus, I've never really hung out with people my age. So I'm almost a whole complete generation ahead of the people that are actually my age. So what that led to is kind of like me being more like a father figure in my neighborhood. So all of these people, like my dad and my mom's age, all of their kids, their other kids, I'm kind of like looking out for them. So it's like you and me. If I know you, we've got a relationship, and I have your kid out there and he's doing whatever he's doing, you know, but I know you. I don't even have to know your kid. I know you, and just out of respect, because of the culture that we come from, if something's going on with your kid, I'm going to stand up for your kid. That's just the way that I was raised, you know what I'm saying? And how could I come to you and say, man, I saw such and such doing something to your kid and I didn't do anything? You know what I'm saying? That would go totally against what I stand for. So these kids get into this fight, and you know, we're thinking, you know, it's just gonna be a scuffle. You know, when kids are gonna fight, we let them fight. But then when it comes and you bring guns into the picture, that's a totally different ball game. So that was something for the people that were up higher on the totem pole to exist, if you want to talk about that, if you want to say it that way in the gang culture. So this fight escalates to guns. So in my eyes, I'm saying, like I just told you earlier, I got to defend these kids. You know, they're at it with rival gangs or whatever. So at that moment, I dropped my cell phone, I picked my pistol up, and I just emptied the clip into this car, because these kids, they pull out a 12-gauge shotgun. And if you know anything about shotguns, it's spread fire. So it's everybody out there. So I just emptied the clip into the car, not thinking that the kids I'm trying to protect, these kids that I'm gonna hurt, these are somebody's kids too. You know what I'm saying? Totally neglecting the fact that I'm trying to stop a war by starting one. So I do this, and the Lord really just blessed me in the moment, because my cousin I was talking to on the phone, he lives all of 60 seconds away from where we were. So I jump in the car, and we decide we're gonna chase this car. These kids driving off, you know, in the car that I was just shooting into, and these kids drive off, and it's almost just like the Lord just heard my prayer. Because as I told you earlier, I was just like, God, put me in a position where I'll be forced to come to you. So these were like the defining moments of my life and my change and my conversion. So this happens, we get in the car and we're chasing these guys. We get them to the bottom of the hill, which is the exit of the housing project where we are in Harris Homes in Birmingham, Alabama. We get to the bottom of the hill. Mind you, this car is a white Ford Focus with black tint. We get to the bottom of that hill at the exit, there's 2 of them. So we're thinking to ourselves, I'm on the phone with my cousin, there's an intersection. So there's a 4-way stop. We get to the bottom of the hill. My cousin's here on his motorcycle. I'm here behind these 2 cars, and I'm talking to him and, loading the gun, reloading the gun at the same time. And I'm thinking to myself, like, which one of these cars are we going to take? They look the exact same. Not thinking this is God saving me out of this situation. So I said, man, we're going to take the first car that turns. So that means they're trying to get away from us. So the car turns right, and it's just like the bottom falls out of the sky. I mean, it's like purple clouds, everything. It's like something you see out of a movie. And it's raining, so we're riding, shooting, all these other stuff. We get to the end of the road, the stoplight, come to find out that we took the wrong car. It's a car full of girls. So that situation dies down. A week later, I'm in the same spot, same guys, hanging, pistol on my lap, blunt in my mouth, on my cell phone. And there's another situation where the guys are coming back from the basketball game, and he's about right here in my vision. And as he approaches, you shoot the deuces, peace sign or whatever, and they're walking. And as he gets directly in my line of sight, a burgundy Toyota Camry pulls up, guys jump out with guns, exact same scenario. So like I told you earlier, I was raised in church, but the church wasn't raised in me. But I knew enough about God to know that if I stay in the same situation and this happens again, I'm probably going to die. And this is a sign, this is God telling me that, hey, you might want to change what you're doing. So I called my girlfriend, who wasn't my wife at the time, who I'm married to now. I called her and I said, baby, I got to get out of this. I got to stop. Something has to change in my life. I gotta stop this. So I just came off of this big, huge run. We were trafficking drugs up and down I-65 from Alabama to Tennessee. And the beautiful thing about it is I know people that have been killed over $15, let alone thousands of dollars that, that were owed. In the drug game, you pay a guy and he brings you what you need, that type of deal. So in this situation, it was just, well, I just wanted to be out of it. And there was still money that needed to be paid on this debt. So the blessing of God was, I called this guy and I said, hey man, I gotta get out of this. This is the guy that I scored my first drugs from when I was 15 years old. Same guy I've been scoring drugs from the whole time. And he said, man, I understand. He said, man, do what you gotta do. And that has never happened to anybody I know. It never happened to me, because if you owe me money, I'm coming to get it. You see what I'm saying? That's the way we came up. So for him to have expressed it the way that he did, that let me know that God was showing me something. And that wasn't even the end. A month or so later, after it all died down, because this happened around Christmas time, Saturday after Saturday. The first incident I told you about, that was a Saturday, and the following Saturday was the second incident. So about a month or so later, I'm headed to Tennessee. I've decided I'm going to leave Birmingham, Alabama alone. I'm going to move up here with my girlfriend. I'm just going to get away from it all. As I cross the state line, I reach Marshall County. It's around mile marker 32, 33 on 65 North, coming into Tennessee. And there's 4 state trooper cars sitting in the median. And my wife says, baby, I think they're pointing at you. So I don't think she's joking, that type of thing. I've seen 1, I've seen 2, I think I may have seen 3, but I've never seen 4. So I'm not doing anything illegal at the time, but mind you, I said, I'm getting out of this. So I vacuumed the car. I did everything I could, because I've dealt with police. We've paid them. We know how all of those things work. And usually when you just cooperate with police, you usually don't have any issues. And if you do, they're minimal if you're cooperative. So they eventually pull me over, and they get me, and I ask for license registration. And the whole time I'm not thinking, I'm not looking back behind me. By the time I turn around to hand him my license and registration, there's 15 cars behind us. So they've got the all black Suburban, they got the all black Crown Vic, they got the drug test, they got everybody out there. They bring the dogs out, and like, man, they're searching the gas tank. They took the speakers out of the subwoofer box. They used my tools to do it. They dumped my baby's Christmas toys out. They dumped the clothes out, everything. Now, mind you, what I didn't tell you is 3 or 4 months before me, prior to me getting in those 2 shootouts, I was coming up here to TSU homecoming, and I got arrested with illegal possession of a firearm. Plus, I'm already on probation for some felony charges that I had in 2005. So long story short, if I go to jail, I got to back up time. Mind you, I just shot some people. So I'm going to have to back up that time. They're going to get this gun. They're going to match the prints. They're going to match the bullets. We're going to have to do all of these things. I'm going to be going to jail for a very, very, very long time. So I don't have any drugs in the car, but I got this illegal firearm on me. So I'm saying to myself, I've got my daughter in this car. I've got my girlfriend in this car, and she's pregnant with my son. So I'm running. I'm a thinker. So I'm thinking, how is this going to go? She doesn't have any record. She could take the charge for me. And my child is going to be born in state custody. They're probably going to take my child from her, and the one that she has, they're probably going to take that one too. So I said, no, that's not an option, because I can't have my son born in jail. That's never going to happen. I can't walk with that. I can't live with that as a man. I can't let that happen. So I said, you know what? I'm just going to have to take this charge. I'm just going to have to deal with this. And I accepted it. And so he asked me to get out of the car, asked me, could he search me? So by this time, all of these things are gone. They've searched the car. They've done all of these things. They've got her in another police car. They brought in another female officer so they can search her, so they can search my daughter. And they've put me in another car. I'm already in handcuffs. They haven't found anything, but I'm already in handcuffs. Mind you, all of this is on video. So I'm in the back seat, and like I said earlier, I changed my prayer. I said, God, put me in a position where I'll be forced to come to you. So I'm in the police car. I'm in handcuffs. And when they pick up the bag, now I didn't have any secret compartment. I didn't have anywhere to hide it, you know, like a James Bond type thing where you hide stuff. I didn't have any of that. It was just inside her purse in the middle zipper. And this is a big Taurus PT-92, 15 shots, 1 in the chamber, 9mm pistol. Mother of pearl, it's gold and chrome, all of that. Big shiny pistol. And so there's no hiding this thing. When I tell you, when they picked up that bag, not 1, not 2, but 3 police officers, 2 males and 1 female, looked through this bag. And I dropped my head at that moment. I said, Lord, if you get me out of this, I promise I'm gonna live right. And when I tell you, all 3 of those officers looked in that bag and they did not see that pistol, that's the only reason I'm sitting right here talking to you and not in the penitentiary to this day. And then ever since that moment, I've made every single effort I can to live as close to perfection as possible in the sight of God.
Wow.
Man,
that's you said, I wouldn't say it's amen. I mean, that's wow. I mean, you've said a lot, and I'm hearing your heart, brother. That's the main thing I was listening to, is your heart, and this passion you had for darkness turning into light. Talk a little bit about what are you doing now with the same zeal and passion and light that will erase and eradicate the darkness totally.
Well, quick story, man. Like I said, I jumped into what I thought God wanted me to do. So I found a church, the Turning Point, in Madison, Tennessee, and I just jumped headfirst into every ministry I could. I got involved in children's ministry, the van ministry, you know, every single facet of church life, what we know as the church machine. I got involved in every single facet of that. And a few years in, you know, our church decided they wanted to have a talent show. Now, mind you, I dabbled and dabbled in music years before. You know, we've all, you know, we heard a rap, we wrote something of our own, but I never really took it serious. So the kids on the van, they said, Brother Joel, well, we heard you used to rap. And I said, yeah, man, I used to. Such as we said, well, why don't you get in the talent show? And I'm thinking, man, you got to be crazy. You know, nobody doing that type of music in the church, you know. And up until this time, I had never heard of, you know, any of the music that I listen to today, you know, like the Lecrae's or the Molly music, like you mentioned earlier when we were talking. So I never heard of these guys. And I said, the Spirit spoke to me. He said, Joel, what you have to do is you have to look past your own insecurities, and you have to look past your own fears, and you have to realize that what I'm trying to show you is that these kids are facing something when they go home that can only be a void that can only be filled by music that can create positivity and that can create change in their lives. So it would behoove you to do something, you know, that would give them, you know, a little piece of positivity in that world and where they live in, which is today where children's entire identity, it's like when I was little, if If you had a bike, your entire identity was wrapped up in that bike. You know, you had the mag wheels, and you had the clear grips on it. You know, you might have had the chrome frame, you might have had the spokes on your wheels, all of those things, the pegs. Our identity was wrapped up in those types of things. And then, you know, later on, you know, we got our identity wrapped up in clothes and things of that nature. But now, people's identity is wrapped up in the hip hop culture. It's wrapped up in the music that they listen to. So I said, well, I'm not trying to pursue a career or anything. I'm just trying to give these kids something that they can do. So I remixed 2 songs by Drake, and they loved it. I'm telling you, they loved it so much. My pastor pulled me to the side after the show, and he said, Joel, I think that's something that you should pursue. Now, this is going to sound very, 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 very negative when I say this, but I mean this in the most positive way. If my pastor had been somebody that shared the nationality that I share, I might not have took it as seriously as I did. But for my pastor to be a 55-year-old white guy from Texas, a 50-plus-year-old white guy from Texas, I took that to heart, because it's rare that you have somebody from outside of the culture who sees something that a culture lacks, that pushes you towards pursuing something that could potentially change what we know as hip hop music. I didn't realize it would be that big and that it would get to where it is today. However, he sparked something in me, and even then I didn't listen. So it took me maybe a year or so before I even took it serious. And then eventually the ball got rolling, and you know, you start meeting people, you start networking, you start doing things today. So now where I am, I believe that what we try to do with our music is we try to change the perception of the purpose of music. So we do that by taking some positive, absolutely non-derogatory, absolutely no negativity lyrics, and we match that with some of the industry's greatest production. And we just happen to make great hip hop music. And that's what we're doing today, man. We're out here reaching. We just started up a program called Gang that's headed by Mount Carmel Missionary Baptist Church on Monroe Street in Nashville. And it's Pastor Marcus Campbell. And what we're doing is we're kind of rehabilitating children that are on probation. These kids that are 17, 18 years old, they're involved in gangs and the gang culture. And we're trying to show them a different way and a different light, a different spin on life that'll allow them and that'll also facilitate them being as successful as they would like to be, minus the illegalities that come with living the street life. So it's been a blessing, man. You know,
wow,
it's
that's
been a
good.
blessing.
That's beautiful. What song resonate in your heart when you, in your production and in what you're speaking now in terms of the lyrics to the young people?
I have a song called One Night Stand. And One Night Stand represents, I'm pretty sure our viewers know what a one night stand is, and you know, that terminology, they understand that. So I always think about, there are people who were like me. They were raised in the church, but the church wasn't raised in them. So it's just one night stand after one night stand with God every time they're involved in a church service or every time they step inside that building. They go in there, they go to the altar, they pay their tithes, they do all of the things that are within their reasonable service, but they never step outside of their comfort zone to make it a part of their lifestyle. It's just a habit. And then what happens is, in the church machine, I make sure I put emphasis so people know what I mean by the church machine. I mean the structure of what we know as the church building, the congregation, those things, because the true church is here, according to the word. So the things that are wrapped up in the church machine, what happens is those things take you to a place when you come to those habits and doing those things like paying your tithes and doing all the things that are in your reasonable service. Those things become tradition. And then tradition eventually becomes your religion over time as it passed down through generations. And then religion only takes you to a place where a relationship with the higher power can get you out of. So until you've developed a true relationship with Christ, a lot of those things go by the wayside as just, well, that's just the way mom did it, or just that's the way grandmama did it. And there's a lot of things that can be lost in the shuffle when it comes to living your life according to the way that the Word tells us to live it. So with One Night Stand, it gives you a bunch of different scenarios about things that happen in our culture, and it shows you how God sees those things, and it helps you to understand that, God, I don't just want this one moment. I don't want just this temporary fulfillment. I want to know how to come to you when things are going good. I want to know how to come to you when, for lack of a better word, when I don't need you. You know what I'm saying? I want to be able to be there. I don't want to walk. Like before, I would have called myself doing my music for God. Now I call myself doing my music with God. Mm. Because it's not, before you were competing, before you were trying to impress. Now you're trying to reach people and meet them where they are. Because that's what Jesus did. He walked into the modern day metaphorical nightclub and said, hey, this is how I'm living. You might not want to change the way that you're living, but I'm going to show you how I'm living, and I'm going on about my business. So he walked into the strip club and said, see what's going on here? Oh, yeah, okay. Let me get a Sprite and an orange juice, and this is what we got going on. I'm gonna chit chat with a few people, and I'm on to the next one. And that's what he did. But today's church machine, get so caught up in our own insecurities, and we get so caught up in our own imperfections and our own fears. We've cloaked what we know today, what the world knows, the overall perception of what we think is holiness. We've cloaked that, and it's actually fear, but we've deemed it righteousness, and it's not, because you don't sin by osmosis. Mm-hmm. You see what I'm saying? I could have set Jeffrey Dahmer right here in his prime when he was doing what he's doing, but that doesn't make you like him because you guys are sitting next to each other, does it? Mm-hmm. You see what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. So what we have to do is, it's not about the words per se, it's about living your life. So for example, I know, no offense to people who smoke cigarettes, but it's just common sense that if you put fire into your lungs, you're gonna burn some things in there. Mm-hmm. So in short, if I live a life that constitute that these things aren't good for your body, or that they aren't good for your life as a whole, if we have a true relationship with one another, I never have to utter a word in your direction about the things that you're doing wrong. My actions will convict you.
That's good.
So that's how I live my life.
Wow, that's good. I tell you, we got to have you back on. Absolutely. So we can expound more. I know there are a couple things that I really want to lay hard in terms of suicide of young people and just what message comes through that. Mm-hmm. And the Word talks about that God is light and in Him is no darkness. And if we say we have fellowship with Him and walk in darkness, then we lie and the truth is not in us.
That's it.
But if we walk in the light, as He is the light, we have fellowship with one another. Brother, you have blessed us in so many ways, and I appreciate, man, just the God in you. And as Paul says, it's not him that's living, but it is Christ in him that's living. He's crucified. And so you allow the light and the life of God to live through you, to take over. And last word of encouragement that you have.
Well, this is one thing that always resonates with me. In Proverbs chapter 20, verse 7, it says that the just man walketh in integrity, and his children are blessed after him. So I live my life with integrity at the forefront of everything that I do, so that I can make sure that the footsteps that follow mine will please him in the process.
Wow, that's awesome, brother.
Man.
Stay focused. Wow.
Appreciate it.
Glory, glory, glory.
Praise
Lord.
Him. Praise Him.